All right, hello everybody and welcome. You are here today for how to build an eBay side hustle with AI in one weekend. My name is Albert, the founder of Albert's List. We are a job search, AI, and side hustle education organization helping you become the most resilient professional possible. And in this age of inflation and economic uncertainty where building income and building security is more difficult than ever, we're all looking for side hustles to start in 2026. One of the best side hustles to start that requires very little money down and maybe involving things around the house is selling on eBay. And with us today to help share his insights and show you how you can get started is my friend Charles Costa. He's been presenting here on the Albert's List platform for a few years now and works at eBay and has sold on eBay himself and has secrets and insights to share. Before we get started, this webinar is being recorded. We're going to go ahead and have it on YouTube later. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the webinar chat or the Q&A function, and we'll get to those when we can. Charles, welcome back. Good to have you here.
Thank you. And as mentioned, thank you everyone for making the time to attend this webinar. As Albert mentioned, I'm Charles, and I'm the creator of resellingguide.ai. Also, I'm currently a senior content strategist in the customer experience division at eBay. I've been with the company since March of 2020, and my start date literally was the day California closed all the offices due to COVID. And I've been reselling on the platform since early 2021. These days, I mainly sell men's and women's clothing and accessories. I primarily get inventory from estate sales, thrift stores, and sometimes just if I'm out at the store and something catches my eye, I might purchase it. And when I first started on eBay, I actually started with glassware and hard goods, but I ultimately made the decision to shift to clothing because it's just much easier to store and ship. And also, when you're working with limited space, such as in the Bay Area, not having to stock up on bubble wrap and boxes makes a huge difference. Before continuing, I just have a quick disclaimer that Reselling Guide AI is an independent project through MPAD Holdings LLC. It's not affiliated or endorsed by eBay, and everything shared today is my own perspective. And now I'm going to show you exactly how I use AI to make reselling faster, smarter, and less stressful. Real tools, real examples, practical stuff you can use right away. Now, let me tell you why right now is a great time to start reselling. First, tariffs, which have been in news quite a bit right now. And new goods are going to be much more expensive. When retail prices go up, buyers are going to be looking for alternatives. And one of the biggest alternatives is secondhand items. Not bad news for you, it's opportunity. More buyers are entering the resale market than ever before, and they're looking for what you might have sitting in your closet, your garage, or lying around in your home. Speaking of which, think about the gift you got last holiday that wasn't quite right for you. You smiled when you received it, said thank you, and it's just collecting dust in a closet or wherever it might be. It's not clutter, it's inventory. You can turn that into cash, sometimes for more than what the gifter paid for it. The demand for secondhand goods is now mainstream and it's increasing. Gone are the days where only thrift store regulars are purchasing things from other people. People want quality without paying the sticker price. They also want sustainable choices, and online marketplaces make it easier than ever to connect sellers with buyers. You're no longer limited to your local area. You can reach buyers across your country or even internationally. And I'm not just referring to clothing, electronics, home goods, collectibles, books, vintage items. whatever you can think of, there are buyers out there searching. And the question is whether you are going to meet them. That's the opportunity, but here's the problem. Reselling sounds simple. You find stuff, you list it, and you profit. Except when you actually try to do it, sometimes you run into walls. And quick question for a chat. Type me if you've ever found something you thought might be worth money, but you couldn't figure out what it was or what to price it at. So I do see a couple of people did say yes, and honestly, it's happened to me quite a bit. Ultimately, you go to the thrift store, you find, or you have something at home that you think of selling, and the question on your mind is, you don't know, or you spend 20 minutes on your phone trying to figure out what it even is. Can't find a brand, don't know model number, and you give up and move on. Or possibly worse, you buy the item, you list it, and it sells, but then when the buyer gets the item, you get a message on the marketplace, and the buyer is saying, item not as described, I want a refund. And your stomach drops. Did you miss something? Was there a flaw you didn't see? Now you're out the item and the money, and you just feel off. And the fear of getting burned is what stops most people from reselling. It's not necessarily the legwork of sourcing inventory or, I guess, figuring out the pricing, things like that. It's just the fear and uncertainty, not knowing how to do it right. And this is where AI changes the game. It doesn't replace your judgment, it gives you leverage. And knowledge that used to take years to build, you can now access everything in seconds. I'll get to this in a moment. Um, so today I'm going to show you how AI can help you go from not knowing anything about reselling to getting into how to effectively identify items and provide accurate information. So the workflow I use when processing inventory is to identify the item and understand what I'm looking at. Then I'm evaluating the conditions and catching flaws I may need to call out for the customers to avoid returns and disputes. I then research the comps, which are seeing what has the item sold for before. Then it's a matter of creating a listing and optimizing for sale, then posting that listing and refining as needed. So ultimately, as mentioned earlier, there is some nuance and complexity to each of these steps. Identification isn't just determining what is the item, it's going to be understanding what is the brand, the era, specific model of the item, and knowing what are the things that buyers care about. These details affect the value and also affect the value of the item. Because often on eBay, for example, someone may misspell a brand like Vineyard Vines or Abercrombie or something like Gucci and so on. There are people who search for misspelled items on eBay and look for lower prices and snatch them up and then resell it with the correct spelling for multiples of what they originally paid. So before AI, getting good at knowing your inventory and knowing what to buy and how terminology, all that, it was years of trial and error. You learned by making mistakes, buying items that didn't sell, underpricing items you didn't realize were valuable, and getting burned by things because you missed something. And AI compresses all of that. And what I'm about to show in the demo is the high level concept of using, sorry, checking my audio right now. Is that any better? Oh, perfect. Um, So AI makes everything much easier and enables you to get relevant information in seconds. And the demo I'm about to show is a high level concept of using AI. We are using ChatGPT, but the prompts can be adapted to different AI systems, Gemini, Claude, and so on. And what I'm focused on is the concept here. With the course, which we'll discuss a bit later, we go a bit deeper into the thinking behind each step, worksheets to refine your approach, and how to tailor the information to the vertical or categories that you're selling in. And so let me quickly change my screens. Here we are. So right now we have ChatGPT, and for this example, uh, one moment. Sorry about that. So right now we have ChatGPT, and over here we have a website called HiBid. And this is kind of like an eBay for auction houses where they typically do like estate sales, closeouts, cleanups, things like that. And each auction house will list inventory and then pretty much sell it to whoever. And so one of the examples of AI, the first example I'm going to go over is sourcing and condition evaluation. And just, I'm going to go through this as if I were actually shopping for inventory. So let's say I'm looking to sell sporting goods and I see these headphones or ear protection. What I'm going to do is take the screenshots from HiBid. So I'll just grab a couple images here. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm really just trying to show a high level of how this works. And we're going to use the prompt, which I will copy paste in here. I'm considering the item to resell. Help me identify what this is, estimate potential resale value, and tell me what condition issues I should look for that buyers might complain about. And we're going to have ChatGPT run through this. And you can see ChatGPT, it's not just telling me here. So for example, Google Lens, I may take a picture of these headphones and then Google Lens will say, here's the headphones, here's where you can buy them. ChatGPT is helping me from the perspective of a reseller because it's telling me what the item is. It's telling me what type of pricing I should consider. And it's
Hey
also
Charles, I
giving,
want to interrupt.
yes,
I sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
but you're having some audio issues that make it really tough to hear you, and it's getting quiet and then loud and quiet and loud. Um,
is that any better?
yeah,
Just change the
whatever
microphone.
whatever pose you're doing there sounds a lot better. There we go.
Is that any better?
Yeah, I can hear. I can hear you well here.
Okay.
There we go.
So right now what I have is whereas Google Lens, you can take a picture of headphones and then Google Lens will tell you here's where you can buy them. ChatGPT is telling me here's the item, here is pricing that the item may sell for, and it's also helping me understand condition issues or things that may cause returns or chargebacks, things like that. And also, ChatGPT is saying, here's how you can improve the selling proposition. So ultimately, so I know nothing about these headphones. So if I see them at the thrift store, wherever it is, and I think these look cool, I now have instantly an idea of, is this something worth picking up for my eBay store? And I'm curious in the chat to hear what are the items or categories that you are interested selling? Is it books, clothing, auto parts? What might be? Awesome. Vintage clothing, baseball cards, startup t-shirts, household goods, books. Great. All of these are excellent categories. I've sold a variety of things. What electronics are worth selling? Um, I actually can, for the next demo, let me go back to Hybrid and let me do computers and electronics. So I will show, rather than saying what's worth selling, because as a reseller, you determine what works for you. You can be selling high end or you can do low end. It really depends on what you are interested in. So, for example, we're back on high bid, and let's do this camera, the IE1 from Canon. So I'm going to take those pictures. I know this isn't the best example for electronics because this is a analog camera, but conceptually this you can still do the exercise with it. And what we're going to do now is try to get more details on pricing based on item condition. So I have the prompt, and let me just copy paste that here for reference. Based on the item and the apparent condition, what pricing factors should I consider? What's a realistic price range? What would make this high versus low? And I believe ChatGPT kind of did touch on that earlier because when I've been using ChatGPT, I tend to ask these questions and it memorizes them. But when you're doing the research as a reseller, I do prefer to be very specific with questions because now you can see when we specifically ask, what are the factors? Um, so the prompt is right here. And so, yes, I will share the prompts after this workshop. So right now, the prompt is based on this item and likely condition. What pricing factors should I consider? What range should I be looking for? And what would make it a high price versus low price? And you can see here, ChatGPT it says, here's the item. And it does provide a very detailed overview of red flags or things to consider. And you can see critical checks, test the shutter, check the mirror, make sure it doesn't make a squeak, and so on. And so speaking from the perspective or not just for high bid, but like if you're in a thrift store or an estate sale, something of that sort, you can take pictures with your phone and import them to the Gemini app or ChatGPT and ask these prompts, and you'll get similar answers. So then now the other thing that ChatGPT can help with is photography. So I know I did see in the chat some home decor, vintage, antique stuff. Let's do coins, and let's just take a listing of this Morgan silver dollar. So we'll grab these images. And now we're going to have ChatGPT help us take better pictures or provide photography tips. So there are two prompts for this. The first is I'm copy pasting that right now. I'm reselling this item, need to photograph it from the perspective of a professional product photographer. How should I photograph this item to make it most attractive to buyers? And we're asking angles, lighting, and background. And the key call out here with this prompt is we are telling ChatGPT to think as a photographer versus just being a generalist. So we're going to run this. And you can see ChatGPT is saying it's helping you understand what are coin collectors going to be looking at. And this use case, say you're an estate sales tend to have lots of coin collections. So now, even if you're not an expert coin collector, you can snap some pictures and then instantly get a feel for, is this something worth picking up? And so ChatGPT is also providing these tips here, like it's saying it's good to have a black background, avoid a white background, how to do the lighting, and so on. So overall, um, say you have the item, you're not sure how to photograph it. Now you have clear guidance on how to make the items you have more attractive. And the other prompt I have is looking at this photo, what is lacking that would make a buyer hesitant? And again, we're saying as a professional product photographer, and we're saying, what would you do differently to improve the buyer confidence? But more importantly, reduce returns. Ultimately, with photography, you need to be explicit about any flaws, the condition, and so on. So that's something we want to call out. And you can see now ChatGPT is saying, here's how to improve. It's providing additional from the lens of pretty much specifically, if I'm a buyer, what would cause me to go to a different seller for the item? And are there particular items that or categories that generally work well for reselling? That I will say, reselling, there are so many different platforms. It's really a case of different items work for different platforms. Um, I'll get into that in the Q&A section. But definitely I would say with reselling, bulky items, like if you're selling appliances or things like a pool table or furniture, Facebook Marketplace tends to be best because you're not shipping, people are picking up the item. For smaller items like clothing, electronics, and so on, there's really more variety. So Poshmark, eBay, Depop. Um, Ultimately, you have to find what works for you. But definitely, I would say with reselling, it's pretty much a case of list the item well, price it at an attractive level, and you'll find a buyer. And So I'm curious in the chat, one more question is there anything you own? Is there anything they have that you've been meaning to sell, but you're just not sure what to price it or if someone will buy it? And I do see a question, when I buy something, does it then need to get shipped to me or can I quickly resell? So that would be drop shipping if you're kind of like a middleman where you create the listing and then you have a supplier who gives you the item or ships the item on your behalf. I personally am focused on, so I guess like for this use case, like hybrid, I typically purchase items in bulk. So like let's say I have the coin or electronics, for example. And what I typically do is I would look at the auction house and what they sell, and then I may buy like all of these items here in one shot. And then when I get the items, I list them and ship them out. But so typically, but hybrid isn't really the only way to get inventory. You can go to a thrift store, estate sale, flea market, or even Walmart, Target, or any store, and pretty much just get the item and sell it. And I do see in the chat an item that someone wants to sell, Spike wants to sell is a guitar amp. So something I'll quickly do here is another use case is just asking ChatGPT, um, kind of like getting guidance on how to navigate reselling. So let's say I have a Marshall guitar amp. Not sure how price if I hold on to them. So we're going to ask ChatGPT right now. I have a Marshall AS550 guitar amp, and I'm not sure if I should it now or if it will. Um, does eBay, so quickly while ChatGPT processes this, I see the question, does eBay dictate turnaround time to ship a product? As a reseller, generally on eBay specifically, you can dictate the time it takes to fulfill. So I don't have the exact numbers in front, the exact options. I personally do 3 days, 3 business days, but eBay, I think it goes up to 30 business days, if not more. So you do have a bit of flexibility. And going back to the guitar amp, you can see here ChatGPT is providing a general idea of its understanding. And it's also saying here's the general pricing, and it's telling you what makes the guitar amp a high-end condition. And so and you can also see ChatGPT does look at historical trends and so on. So now if we quickly go to like baseball cards, for example, and off the top of my head, actually let's do quickly, we'll just do this baseball card right here. And we'll ask ChatGPT, I have the attached card. Is it is hybrid free? Hybrid is, I don't know the exact price. It's so hybrid, you actually, sellers do not pay a fee. The buyer pays the fee. So I don't know the exact pricing. Hybrid, I would say, is more, It's more like if you're, yes, it is free to browse, but if you're looking to sell, I think it's really more for professional auction houses. And just quickly jumping back to the baseball card, you can see it does identify what the card is, and it does provide a bit of detail on the space and so on. Ultimately, this information from ChatGPT, it's definitely great background. And speaking from the lens of someone who, if I'm just going through an estate sale and quickly photographing car or quickly just seeing is an item worth flipping, I think this is a good starting point to determine is an item worth digging into. But ultimately, it's important to do your due diligence. And finally, I have a couple more prompts to go over, just related to common mistakes that resellers make. So just jumping, actually, we'll do this baseball card. And the prompt I have is going to be, for this item, what specific details do buyers expect to see in the description, and what would make them has confident to purchase without asking questions? So ultimately, on eBay or whatever platform you use, you don't just want to write great condition baseball card. You want to be very specific and call out any defects or details that matter to the buyer. So we'll quickly just run this example. And you can see again, ChatGPT is providing insight into the baseball card buyers and what they're looking for. Another prompt I have is similar to high end, kind of like going back to the pricing. I will stop this because ChatGPT, it does tend to be very thorough with these prompts. The next thing is what factors would make this sell at the higher versus lower end? And so now ChatGPT is providing much more detail in its answer about condition, um, and so on. And then the other prompt worth this one is really important, I would say, if you're selling collectibles, which is if I were considering buying this item to resell, what red flags would make me walk away? What would make it a bad purchase? And so we'll quickly run this. Aside from baseball cards, this is a good question to ask if you're selling clothing, handbags, electronics, because pretty much those tend to be clothing, especially, or electronics or so on. Buyers are going to be very particular. And if you're paying up for inventory, so say you're buying electronics to resell, you don't want to end up grabbing an iPhone and paying $100 hoping to flip it. And then you see when you get home, there are condition flaws or it's something that can't be sold. So ultimately, this question here, it's something to help you, kind of like a checklist almost, where when you're in the field, you're proactively avoiding things that can cause issues later on. And the final prompt I will go over is probably second level of importance to actually having quality inventory is just finding ways to keep pushing forward and not give up. So as a reseller, when you're first starting out, you list a couple of items. They may sell within a day, they may sell within minutes, or they may take a little longer. So ChatGPT also is very good at helping you refine existing listings so they can sell sooner, or also help you pivot if needed. And in this case, the prompt is going to be, I just listed this item. What should I do next to build momentum as a new reseller? And key thing here is that we are telling ChatGPT, give me 3 things I can do right now to improve. So that will go through. And ultimately, all of these prompts, these are going to be can be adapted to fit your needs. And also ChatGPT, for example, instead of saying, um, like I may say, go back to this prompt and we'll say, I just listed a Patagonia jacket as a fashion reselling expert. What should I do next? So ultimately, with ChatGPT, the more specific you can be with the prompt and tailoring it to your needs, it provides much more relevant answers. I do see quickly in the chat, where do I get inventory to resell? I mainly go thrift stores and estate sales. There is a website, I'll put it in the chat, called maxsold.com. And it's similar to Hybid, but it's kind of like local estate sales. So instead of shipping, buying on Hybid and having them shipped to you, you go to the place and pick it up. Hybid also, you can do local pickup. Maxsold and Hybid are both very similar. The main difference is really areas they cover. I know Maxsold is in California. Hybid isn't really too big here. So ultimately, both sites are worth checking out, and you'll just see what auctions are in your area. So let me just changing my screen again. Okay, so now the main thing about this course, I know, or this webinar, is you came as about becoming a reseller in a weekend. So I have right here the weekend workflow to help you get your first item up and running on eBay or whatever marketplace that you choose. So on Saturday morning, sweep your closet or sweep the home, walk through your home with fresh eyes, and just find something like a jacket you haven't worn in a couple of years, electronics you have sitting in a drawer, the gift that wasn't really a fit for you. Put all those items in one spot. If you're not really using it and you feel like you're ready to part ways, just put it in that pile or box or wherever it might be. And then in the afternoon, take those items and clean them. So if it's clothing, put it in the washing machine. If it's an electronic, wipe the screen down, whatever it might be. You just want to remove any really material stains or something. So whatever you can at a very high level. And then it's a case of just taking the photos. And there are, like I showed earlier in the demo, ChatGPT, for example, in the coin prompt, it did say like use a black background instead of a white background and so on. But for this exercise, for your first few items, you're really just trying to get the gist of listing. So clean up the items, go to like an area that's naturally lit. So go by a window, a blank wall. If you have a white poster board, put the item on that and just take photos of the items and be sure to photograph any flaws that may may trigger a return or something that a buyer might not be happy with. And now on Sunday, now you can use AI to identify the items, check the comps, which is seeing how has the item performed on eBay or Poshmark or Depop and so on, and what's a good price. Then get your descriptions drafted, and if you can, try to have 5 listings up by Sunday night. If you only have one item, that's totally fine. At this point, it's really just a case of building up that muscle memory. And then after you get those first few listings up, keep an eye on the marketplace. If buyers reach out with questions, be sure to answer them within. Generally, I try and answer within a day, but ultimately do what you can within your schedule. And every week, if you see that an item is just sitting around and not doing anything, run it through the AI again, or use your knowledge as you continue to sell, and then look at those items that aren't selling and determine, does the price need to be adjusted? Should the photos be improved? Is there a typo in the listing? And that's really it. So ultimately, with reselling, the hardest part is just getting started. And then once you have that momentum, you can become an expert in different areas, such as becoming an expert in selling handbags or baseball cards or so on. And then you can get into purchasing inventory in bulk and really scaling if that's what you choose to do. Um, so those are the very high level of how to use AI as a reseller and really just get your bearings and navigate the tip of the iceberg. What I didn't provide, however, is frameworks for different categories. For example, if you're selling clothing, how can you ask the AI to specifically call out knowledge related to clothing? Or if you're doing auto parts, how do you get the AI to tailor the insights to an auto part reseller? And also finding inventory. I, in the course, I do provide insights on using AI to help determine what are the best places to source inventory, how to determine what brands to expect, things of that sort. Ultimately, as mentioned with the information that was gone over right here, it definitely gets you started. And to be honest, you can do quite a bit of work and also get pretty far with the prompts I provided because as you continue to use ChatGPT, um, you're going to figure out what works for you and then add those additional inputs into your prompts. But the key thing though is that it's a lot of trial and error. And ultimately, if you do have a listing that goes up and the buyer says the item isn't what was described or the item doesn't work or so on, that can cause you'll have to pay a refund. Your account can get dinged and so on. And I'm just saying this from my perspective because I have had multiple instances where I shipped out items and then a buyer messaged me saying, oh, this has a stain or this isn't actually cashmere, this is cotton and so on. And it's just a lot of stuff that I've learned through trial and error. But now with AI, when you know the right questions to ask, you're able to proactively avoid those hiccups. So now going into the course. So key call out is that Reselling Guide AI is continuously evolving because AI is also evolving. So, right now, if you join today, you get everything that exists plus everything going forward, no extra charge. And right now, this course does cover the fundamentals such as item research, identifying the item, understanding value, and knowing the details that matter. It provides guidance on evaluating inventory before you buy it. It also covers customer service. So, how do you handle a frustrated and angry message from a buyer, or a buyer asks, like, is this item XYZ? The course does touch on prompts to help you effectively provide a great customer experience. And also, I do touch on building and reselling assistant. So, using AI as a strategist to help you determine what inventory to buy, how much to buy, or getting a feel for like where your business or where you should be headed as a reseller. And also, I do touch on scaling your operation, pricing strategies, and so on. I also am working on N8N automation templates. So right right now in this webinar, I did go over a handful of prompts that are asked sequentially or separately. With the N8N automation, you will have a chat bot or a WhatsApp bot, a Telegram bot, something that you can message, and the robot will process the prompts for you. So it's kind of like a chatbot as a reselling assistant to piece everything together so you're not trying to juggle multiple things. The course also has worksheets that are tailored to helping you determine what works best for your reselling business because what works for clothing is different from electronics, and what works for electronics is different from home decor. Ultimately, um, so now you may be thinking, all of this sounds great, but I don't have inventory. What should I do? And as mentioned earlier in the workflow, you have inventory already. Just look around your house and figure out what is something you can part ways with, even if you don't think it's really valuable. It can be. And so, an example of this, I don't have a photo right now, but I sold I think it was a first edition sci-fi book from the 1980s that I purchased in a lot from Maxold. And so the book, it cost me about a penny. And I find through research that the book is actually rare. So I listed on eBay as an auction. The book sold for $105 and it went to a buyer in Canada. So that's just one of many examples where you may think something isn't worth it, but there's someone out there who really cares about it. And so right now the course is $47, which is the early adopter price. And as mentioned before, AI is constantly changing, and this course is something that is continuously evolving. And also, I'm building it with input from the community. So, if there's something that you would like covered in the course, a category, a workflow, a specific challenge, I'm happy to take that request and try covering it in the lesson if it makes sense. So ultimately, it's not just purchasing a course, it's getting to shape something that evolves over time. And one INAD claim. So for the cost of what are so say you have the item or one INAD claim pays for this twice over. So pretty much you sell something online on the marketplace, the buyer says the item isn't described. You're not just on the hook for issuing a refund, you will have to pay the shipping costs to the buyer, the item price, and also if you want the item back, it's going to be the cost of return shipping. So ultimately, for $47, you're able to proactively avoid potentially having these claims. So, and also you'll avoid the frustration of dealing with angry buyers. And also, it just helps because when you know, when you have all that information on hand to provide direction and clarity on how to go forward, you're able to accelerate and refine your journey. So that now brings me to the Q&A section. I see that Albert did put the link in the chat, early adopter pricing, lifetime updates, and you're able to start with the items you have in your home. Right now, this pricing, it's currently going to be for the um, so this is the early adopter price. I'm going to have it this way for a couple weeks at least. And this is the special Albert's List price because this course has only been promoted through Albert's List right now. I'm happy to answer any additional questions. Think I covered most of them in the chat, but if there's anything else, I'm happy to answer any remaining questions. I don't see any other questions. I think we're covered. But as mentioned earlier, I am going to share out pretty much an overview of all the prompts that were covered in this webinar. So you will be able to have them. You can copy paste them, refine them, and so on. And if you have any questions or want to connect, my email is charles@resellingguide.ai. So I'll also put that in chat here. And feel free to reach out with any questions that may come up. And I guess I'll hand things back to Albert.
All right, awesome. Thank you again so much, Charles. Getting a lot of great feedback from the audience here. Again, the URL is
I
reselling.
think you're in mute.
Oh, you can't hear me? I think you should be able to hear me. Oh, we do have another question. Does your class cover what items you can sell with higher margins? Can you hear me, Charles, at all? Okay, all right. Sundar, if you have your question, please reach out to Charles on your own and see if he can answer that question. I want to thank you all in the meantime for joining us today. And we have many other webinars in addition to what we have here with our side hustles. Check out resellingguide.ai, and we will hopefully see you all soon for another chance to talk to you about what you can do this year to make more income in this economic environment. All right, chat with you all soon. Have a great, wonderful rest of your evening, and goodbye. See ya.